New headset works. It shows sound. It's so quiet inside these headphones, like it drowns out all the sound, so I can barely even hear myself talking. It's kind of cool in a way. So if you can't hear me, please let me know. You can join into the conversation if you'd like and give me your opinion. But I'm going to talk about Plato's perfect city. And here's something interesting is I just received this book this week on Amazon, The City of Revelation. It was first introduced to me by Jonathan Basie out in California. And he had only sent me a page or two of it. And when I looked for it on Amazon at the time, it was the cheapest copy I saw was like $70. So I didn't have the time or the money to buy it. And just now, it's been a few years, I looked for it again and I finally saw it for a few bucks and got it. So this paperback version. So very interesting. Some of the stuff on here is you'll see pictures like this, the squared circle. All right. And there's another one on here very similar to it. One's like this. Okay. But I want to show you one a little bit clearer. See if it was a little bit before, a little bit after that. I'm not sure. There it is. Perfect. That one right there. So take a little glimpse of that picture right there. Squared circle, and then it's got two other circles on the outside of the square. Now remember, I only had a couple pages of that book that somebody had snapped a photo of. Jonathan had showed. Now this is my book, Why is the Moon a Cube? And look at this. Okay, that is my drawing that I made before I saw that in that book of a mound in Marietta, Ohio. And it has a trench around it, two circles. Looks awfully familiar, doesn't it? And what I'm discovering is that the ancients, even here in America, knew this ancient geometry that was presented and known in Bible times as well. So let's get into it. So they knew and were recreating in the earth the people we called Indians. You know, the Athena Hopewell, not Athena, Hopewell and Adena tribes supposedly. I don't think they were Indians. I think they were people from an older culture before what we call the Indians today got here. And they had this geometric knowledge and were drawing us in the earth itself, Plato's perfect city. So if anybody cannot hear me, please make sure you tell me. Okay, so because I'm testing out this new headset and I assume it's working because I see the little sound arrow moving back and forth on my screen. So I assume it's working. All right, now let's get into the Greek alphabet and explain this. In historic times, as I mentioned in other videos, before you had the invention of numerals, in other words, like 1 is a numeral, right? Because it's a picture that represents a number, all right? Before that idea was invented, letters had value, all right? So before roughly 400 and some, before you had this, you only had letters. This is why you had Roman numerals. For example, let me show you something about Roman numerals real quick while I'm up here, and I'll erase it. I forgot to bring something to erase with. Oh, here it is. Napkin out of work. All right, now let's take the Roman numerals, for example. You have I, that's 1. You have V is 5, right? Then you have X is 10. Let's see if I can remember all these. It's been a while, okay? Let's see. You have C, D, L, M. I think that's right. 1,500. 155, 6. What's the other one? 1,005, 655. Oh, and 10. And 10. There we go. So you total all these up, and the value is what? 666. What that does is that heralds back to the Babylonian system that was a base 6 system. Okay, and that's where that came from. And this is part of the reason, pointing back to where the geometry of the 666 comes from. So just a little little notice, some of you have learned Roman numerals, but a lot of people didn't know that most ancient languages, their letters had a numeric value to them because numerals themselves had not yet been invented. So we see here's the Greek alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma, blah, 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 all the way with their numeric values. Now you might notice that one's missing right here. You go, why is 5 missing? Why is something missing here? Well, why is 6 gone? After a while, some of the letters faded away. Okay. There used to be a letter called a digamma there, which means 2 3s, gamma, alpha, beta, gamma is 3. The digamma was 6, and it used to be right here. But now, when you have something in the Greek New Testament like 666 from Revelation 13:18, they use the sigma in place of the digamma. But what's interesting is you might notice that the sigma is actually way down here now and is worth 200 today. That's going to be important in this conversation. So now they use sigma as 6, but as 200, but in Revelation, in the Erasmus Greek text, the received text, you have sigma only worth 6 instead of 200. So if you valued 666, if you open up your Greek New Testament and read 666, it's just these 3 letters, and notice it looks like sex backwards. Okay, that's not coincidence. The words sex, hex, and 6 are all related words etymologically, okay? So you have, if you value it like this, okay, you got the 600, 60, and 6. But if you value the sigma with today's letter, it's 200, okay? The sigma is 200, so then you have 600, 60, and instead of sigma, you have 200, okay, with its current value. That would make it 600, 860. So that would be the value. Now, what's interesting about the value of 860 is that is the rough equivalent of the diameter of the sun, okay? Or as we say, 864,000 miles across. Now, don't get concerned about whether or not miles were in use back then, because the ancient systems were very close to what we use today. It did not start in England. That's a common misconception. Our measurements go way farther back in time than just that. So 860 or 666. So you got 2 possibilities here. Now, this right here, I went ahead and spelled all this out. If you take each letter, kappa, and you go 20, and upsilon, and you add up all the values of each letter for each word, this is the name in Greek, Kyrios Jesus Christos, okay? Lord Jesus Christ, okay? So the value of the letters, and this cipher was very much known to a man named Irenaeus, who used to argue through math for his positions. So he didn't just argue theologically, he argued through math. This cipher, this gematria value, this understanding of the value of the letters for the numbers in Greek was well known all those years and many centuries before Irenaeus, but he used this. If you go online and you punch in Irenaeus and 666, you'll see that he was using this cipher to try back in 150 AD to try to determine who might be the Antichrist in his generation by taking their name and seeing if their value totaled 666. Okay, so this is nothing new. This isn't something modern or something that I pulled out of my rear end or any such idea that somebody might have. This is ancient, okay? And this was what Irenaeus would have been using and many of the other church fathers to argue for their positions theologically, all right? Now, Kyrios, Lord, all right? Lord is worth 800 in Greek. Jesus is 888. Christos is 1480. Now, I want you to notice something, that if you total just Jesus Christ, 1480 plus 888, it's the number 2368. That's important. All right. Now, if you add all three of them together, 800 plus 888 plus 1480, it equals this number 3168. All right. Now, why are these two things important? Now, try to draw Plato's heavenly city for you here. Freehand. So you have to imagine that the squares and the circles are perfect circles and perfect squares. So don't mind if they're not beautiful. All right. Now, first you draw a circle, which represents the earth. Then you'll notice that the diameter of the earth by ancient times, not by the more meticulous, exacting measurements of satellites and precise instruments that are available to us today, but by measurements by people like Erasmus, okay? And think about his name for a minute. E-A-R-T-H, Earth. Okay, maybe the guy who measured the circumference of the earth, possibly his name is related to the word earth instantly, interestingly. Okay, well, anyway, he measured the circumference of the earth way back in hundreds of years before Christ. Okay, and the number that they used in the Pythagorean schools is, what was it, 7920, I think it was. All right, now take the perimeter of the earth. This is a fictitious box. Don't any of you flat earthers come on here and try to tell me that this represents a flat earth. No, it does not. It means Erasmus measured the real size of the earth, and they're going to do something very interesting with this math here in a second, okay? Take this number times 4, 7920 times 4, 0, let's see if I did it right. Let's see, 36 and 28, 29, 30, 31. Yeah, 31,680. I did it right. So 31,680. You can drop the 0, okay, because what we're doing is we're comparing something similar. So, and they do this all the time. It's called the rule of Colel, and it's an ancient understanding. Okay, I didn't invent it. Okay, the Masons know about it. I found it on a Masonic website. It's mentioned in this book right here. All right. Okay, so it's okay to just drop the superfluous 0, or even if it would have been 31,681, you could have just dropped that or rounded it down to 0. Either one. That's a very common practice in ancient geometry like this, okay? But you'll see that the value of Lord Jesus Christ, 3168, is the same as the measurement of the perimeter of the earth or the circumference of the circle of the earth itself, either one. Okay? Now, you can take, right, so you can draw another circle, and you can, by a ratio of 8 to 9, you can create the value of the squaring the circle. Okay, so we're not squaring this circle here. We're actually circling this square by a ratio of 8 to 9. And I can't remember if the circle's the 8 or the square, but you could Google it real quick and remind yourself real easy when you square a circle. Okay, so when you square the circle, you have the same area or the same perimeter. I believe this one's the same perimeter and this one's the same area, if I understand that correctly. Now, the interesting thing is this circle, when you add the moon right here, the moon's diameter is 2,160, and this circle goes right through the very center of the diameter of the moon, 2,160. Now, I've talked about that on a whole bunch of other videos. You'll see that temples, what happened here? Oh, okay. I just beeped at me, so I think everything's good. Okay. All right. Thought I lost signal for a second. All right. So anyway, I've talked about this number 2,160, and if you drop the 0, you will see this number in temples all over the world. Okay. It's also a cube, hence the name of my book, Why is the Moon a Cube? All right. And the moon is the same as a cube because a cube has 2,160 degrees. If you total 90 degrees here, 90 here, 90 here, 90 here, blah, 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 it equals 2,160. So the moon is the same as a cube, and it's the diameter of the moon, which, when you line it up where it touches the earth, this circle hits the dead diameter right there. Now, here's something even more fascinating, okay? If you draw a pyramid right here, a triangle, this will be 51 degrees, the angle of the slopes of the Great Pyramid. So we know that ancient works, ancient creations understood this geometry very well. So it shouldn't be surprising that when I draw this as the mound in Marietta, okay, looks an awful lot the same, doesn't it? All right. And you see that here in this book, all right? This is what is known in Revelation as Plato's heavenly city that was talked about, the perfect city, Plato's perfect city, I should say. And it was talked about all the way back, and I think Plato's Laws, I think, was the book that mentioned it. All right, so let's see. I think I didn't tilt that down enough for you to see that perfectly. So Plato's Laws mentioned the perfect city, and there were a lot more geometric units that are related to these numbers. So I encourage you to go back and get my book. All right, and this book. All right, he's a little smarter than I am, so he knows a little more. So you can find this on Amazon. I found it, I think it was $20, but I had a bunch of points, so I get it for like $6 or something. Mine is $8.99. You can get on Amazon. Mine's a little cheaper. You don't like it, use it for toilet paper. Toilet paper is more expensive. But you can see this stuff is intuitive. That's why I was able to come up with the same information, because this is math that's written in the heavens. It's written in geometry. It's written in the literal size of the earth and the moon. Okay. And 5 million years from now, this is still going to be here. Okay. You can't erase it. People will maybe lose it, like we've kind of have in Christianity and Islam for the last 2,000 years, but it'll come back around again someday. All right. Now, this phrase over here, this is in Revelation 13:18, and there's a reason. Okay, we have Revelation 13:18, all right, that talks about the 666 and the number of his name is, and the number arithmos, otal, xes, okay, of his name. That if you value each one of these letters according to this cipher, okay, go up here with the kappa, the alpha, and add it all up, all right, and add the 666 to it, you get this number right here, 23. So add it all up, you get 2368. Same as this right here, Jesus Christ. So you thought that the value of his name and the number of his name was 666, and it's actually Jesus Christ. So when you hear Masons, and I used to think this was crazy and insane, and I even tried to approach some people, you try to say that Jesus is the devil, right? Mathematically, in the book of Revelation, by the Greek text, according to the value of the Greek text, it is. There's no way of getting around it. And then I told you earlier that if you value it differently and you make the sigma, you use the current value of sigma 200 instead of 666, the number of his name actually equals 860, which I said was the diameter of the sun. Okay, 806, approximate 864,000 miles across, slightly less, rounding. Okay, so here's the sun, 864,000. But who's the sun in the Bible? Did you know that the prophet Malachi, the last prophet in the Old Testament, said in Malachi 4:2 that the Son of Righteousness shall come, S-U-N, shall come with healing in his wings. And he's talking about Jesus, capital S-U-N. There's the Son. Oh, why is the image, or the, I'm sorry, not the image, the number of Jesus Christ, Isos Christos, 2368? Wow. How is that? Because he is the Son, okay? Because this number is not what you think it is, all right? It could be 666 or it could be 2368. This is the balance of good and bad, the yin and the yang, the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, if you will. And it doesn't matter if I believe any of this stuff. I'm just telling you, this is what they were presenting. St. John was therefore what you would call a mystery school initiate. All right. So John the Revelator, he comes in here and he's drawing this stuff out mathematically. There is a reason that the heavenly city in the 666 is in today's Bible, in the King James, in 2116. What did we say that is? Oh, 2116. Remember I told you the rule of Kalel, you can drop one of the numbers. Okay. 2116, it gives you the dimensions of the heavenly city. Isn't that interesting? And this is because the people that translated the King James Bible understood the math behind it. Just because they didn't teach you this in Sunday school, folks, doesn't mean this never existed. Could somebody tell me that you're hearing me okay? This is a new headset. I've never tried it before. If you hear me okay, just say yes or something in the chat. I'd really appreciate it. So now in Revelation 13:18, it talks about the 666. Multiply 13 times 18. It equals 432. Well, what is 432? Well, it's two things, all right? This could be the Son. If you double it, okay, it's 864, just like we showed you right here, all right? Or you can turn it around and go 432 plus its opposite, 234, and that equals 666. You see what's going on there? It's, again, you have the sun, or not the moon, but you have the other number, 666. One is aspiring towards the sacred masculine, one towards the sacred feminine. Now, here's something interesting that most of you don't know that I just discovered in this book. I've been trying to figure out what that 153 that John talks about. Notice John is really into this stuff, isn't he? Because he was a mystery school initiate. Okay, he wasn't just a shepherd or a fisherman, or that's part of the story, okay, but that's not the reality. He was drawing this stuff up probably to present to a teacher, somebody like Plato, but not Plato because that was long before then, but somebody like that in a mystery school of his day as a project. This is my guess of what was going on. You're free to disagree with me, and you can call in, by the way. I put the link on there, so I hope y'all are hearing me. But nobody said okay, so hopefully it's working. But he was presenting this probably to get into the mystery school. That would be my guess. All right. And it's a pretty good thing. Now, the 153, this is very interesting because I told you that the church father Irenaeus, in around 150 or so, he would argue through math his positions. And one of the positions that he really wanted to espouse was that we should use the number 5 more than the number 6 mathematically, all right, because of the 5-pointed star instead of the 6-pointed star. We all know the 6-pointed star is the Star of David, right? And the 5-pointed star is the pentagram. Now, I'm going to erase all this. You can always go back and rewind and review this. And I know some of you, it'll take you, this is an academic thing. And I'm not a scholar. I may have said something slightly off or something. All right. It's a layman that read a book. Okay. But I wrote one too, because it's very, very, very intuitive. All right. Like I told you, it's just, I had 2 pages and I constructed almost this entire book from, 2 pages. So, let's talk about that 153 for a second. If you add the numbers 1 through 17. In other words, you do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and you go all the way to 17. That equals 153. Also, the Greek cubit, or also called the L. You guys ever read the book of Enoch? Remember the giants were 3,000 L's tall, and you were like, what the heck's an L? An L is a Greek cubit. All right. And it's about 1.53 feet. All right. Now, what John did was he was showing you something called the Vesica Pisces in geometry. And it has to do with drawing circles and drawing 17 circles. All right, you have to use a protractor and a compass, and that's why the boat's 200 feet off from shore. And where you place the compass, you get circles, and then that exact distance in the right the right unit, which I think would probably be this. All right, you end up with 17 circles, and 1 through 17 is 153, and that's why there's 153 fish. So that obviously would make anybody say, okay, well, does that mean Peter was in the boat fishing, and was he really? Or, no, this is a math exercise. All right. Now, that Vesica Pisces was a tool used to make a 5-pointed star and a 6-pointed star. I don't have a sixth finger on his hand. Go together with the Vesica Pisces. All right. Which is this shape right here. And you draw 2 circles, and you make a smaller Vesica Pisces. You got to imagine these circles are perfectly the same. I'm freehanding it, so it's not going to be very, very beautiful here. So you have a smaller Vesica Pisces here and a bigger Vesica Pisces here. And with this, you can draw a 5-pointed, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1. I can't do it very good freehanded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that, roughly like that. And this is a way geometrically that people like Irenaeus would argue to blend mathematically the 5-pointed star and the 6-pointed star. And he got ridiculed for this. Okay. This is all in this book right here. Okay. I'm not making this up. He got ridiculed for it because before that it was the 666. All right. That's the number of man. That's the number, man was created on the 6th day, right? It's the harsher, the harsher star, the harsher 6-pointed star. If you think about it, Yod He Vav He, the Greek, it's the Hebrew word for Yod He, Yod He Vav He. There's actually a little point missing right there, which is real important. All right, if you draw that vertically, right, you got the head, the shoulders, the body, and the feet. God is made and man is made in God's image. Yod He Vav He, right? The Tetragrammaton. All right, that's because man is made on the 6th day. This is also a cube, like we talked about. You start with a point. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Your board is the deep, okay? God said, let there be light. As soon as you put one little point on there, you broke up the darkness, okay? This is seriously what they were thinking when they were making this, folks. All right. There's a spot missing here on the hay. All right. There's your hay. Yod He. Take the Vav, which is a 6, by the way, right? 6. We're talking about man. Put it right there. Turn it sideways and put it right there. And then start all over again. Yod He Vav He. That's what it's telling you. Oh, you keep doing that, and what do you end up with? A cube, right? A 6-sided cube. So a man is basically 2 6s, if you will. All right. But in Revelation, it's more than that. It's 666, but it's just, it's just a superfluous 6. That's all that is. So Like we said in the rule of Colel, one more number means the same thing basically. So, or one less, or one below, or erase the zero, because they're just numerical approximations. You can't order everything in the universe perfectly right. They are what they are. So if you find out that something's really close, you're like, oh wow, interesting. So anyway, so that's the 6. So like we said, Irenaeus, he wanted to blend the 5 and the 6. Well, you've heard he wanted before him, everybody was saying 666, right? Well, he wanted there to be grace. So the 5-pointed star, or the pentagram, it's not something evil, folks, all right? The pentagram, you've heard of words like repent? Oh, 5, huh? The 5-pointed star. That's not something they teach you in Sunday school, is it? But this is why the 5-pointed star was on churches all over Europe for, 1,500 years. They didn't think it was bad. And they even turned the point upside down, didn't they? Turn the point upside down. Let's see if I can do it. It's hard to draw free-handed. Yeah, there we go. You actually have an upside down V. Now the Satanists use this too, because what happened was Irenaeus was ridiculed because they believed that the 5-pointed star was people trying to manipulate people's behavior. And this is why it was adopted by Satanists and witchcraft and all this stuff, because they want to modify your behavior, don't they? But then doesn't all religion, or even rules in general, don't all rules want to modify your behavior? By definition, all laws tell you what you can or cannot do with your body. By definition. Can't get around it. So anyway, but Irenaeus, he understood that. So he said, we need repentance. We need softness. We need to blend the 5 with the 6, the yin with the yang. And he said that the way to do that was through the Vesica Pisces. And that's why you have mysteries in John with the 153 fish. Because that symbol, the Vesica Pisces, is how you do it. And this is also why, all right, this is also why if you go to Washington, D.C., and you see the Washington Memorial, the great big old phallic obelisk, it is 555 feet tall, which is the same as 6,660 inches. Remember what I told you can do with the 0, right? You don't need it, all right? So 6,660 inches. And then if you're standing on top and you look down, oh, what is there? A Vesica Pisces. 2 circles. So if you're standing up and looking down, kind of looks like something else, doesn't it? So I'm going to erase that because that's kind of... But you go to Washington, D.C., that's really what they were doing. They were blending the masculine and the feminine. They weren't really trying to be perverted, or were they? Because at the top it says... Las Deus. I don't know Latin. Deus, Las Deus, glory to God. So, however you say that in Latin. It says that at the top, inscribed on top. Gee, I wonder what he was shouting glory to God about. So you can look at it that way if you want, or you could just look at it probably like it was really intended to say that this blends the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. So, all right. If anybody has any questions, call in. I hope this microphone was working and people were hearing me. First time I used it, nobody said anything. So I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds here. 45, maybe a minute. I'll give it one more minute. If nobody calls in, I'm just going to stop it right there. Feel free to ask a question, talk about something else. I've got, I don't know, roughly an hour. So we can chat, talk about anything. I just find it amazing while I'm waiting that's the mound, Plato's heavenly city, that we have right there in Marietta, Ohio. And I missed it when I was writing the first book that it's really the squared circle of Plato's city. I mean, I was going through all sorts of other math, and I found some pretty interesting things with the megalithic yard and how through pi it equals the right diameter of the circle, and some things. This stuff is just it's just you just come up with it intuitively because it's just so obvious. Some of it. Um, and I come up with some of the same measurements that other authors came up with and other mounds and so on. Um, what else can we talk about? I hate to just jump off because it's kind of a short video. It's only 35 minutes. I would love for somebody to say, yes, I hear you in the comments. That would be great. I would love to know that this is being heard okay and that the sound's going through. But not a single person has said a thing. I don't know. Maybe you're scared to show up because you start talking about this and somebody might think you're evil or something, right? So, hello, to activate chat, please enable channels here. Is that why? Is that Did I not do something correct? Add destination. Oh, okay. I can add more destination. One of two. Okay, so now it's working. Add it. Yeah, it should be working on YouTube as well. So, all right. I think everybody's just too scared to call in. Because listen, it's not as complicated as it looks. Nothing on here is more than just addition. Maybe multiply times 4. And you mentioned pi from time to time. You could mention phi and stuff like that. That's why you saw the drawing of Da Vinci's of the naked man inside the pentagram. Um, I'm not going to draw him naked man, don't worry. But you seen the his arms are stretched out, and these are his arms, these are his feet. All right, that's because Da Vinci was showing the same thing. That's why he had all these religious paintings. He understood the geometry. He was initiated, if you will, into the mystery somehow or another, or he was just intuitive and figured it out. Because if you just he didn't have a calculator, it makes it a lot easier for us nowadays. But if you just sit down with a basic cipher and just write it out on a piece of paper, and you have a compass and a protractor, this stuff is just simple as can be. It really is. You'll just see it, and it's just obvious. Okay, so if you think of things like pi and phi, that's why like this relationship here between these two segments is phi. All right, so that's why when Irenaeus wanted to introduce the 5-pointed star into Christianity, not just the 6-pointed star, he really had something going because phi is beauty, grace, love. And that's what he was trying to say. He said he wanted the grace of Jesus. But if you use the right unit, you can even take this, and this is also in the book, and you end up with the 2368. Or no, I'm sorry. You end up with Jesus is 888. And the 1480 for Christ, and you add them together, and it equals 2368, which we said earlier is Jesus Christ in the Greek gematria. But I didn't really want to present this because it's still just a tiny bit fuzzy to me exactly what unit that he's doing that. I think he's talking about a ratio here. So if somebody can help me figure that out, that would be great. It's fun to come and do this. Like I said, I'm not a scholar. I'm just a guy who read a book, right? And wrote one. But some of this stuff's just really intuitive. But that's in this book here too. Okay. So The City of Revelation by John Mitchell. Best book I've ever owned. All right. And it's just so intuitive. I nearly wrote that book based on 2 pages and then went and looked at the mounds and got some information from some people, read my Bible, used a calculator, and this stuff just comes together. It's just common sense. It really is. So you can do a lot of stuff in the Bible, figure this stuff out like this on your own. So let's see. Then this all right. Now let's just go ahead and draw another. Anybody want to call in and talk to me about this stuff? I mean, go ahead. Let's say I draw a pentagram perfectly. I need to throw this one over farther. All right. I keep grabbing the wrong one. Let's say that's a perfectly drawn pentagram. There's 72 degrees between each point, isn't there? Right? So if you make a circle, this would point to 0. There's 72 degrees between each one. So that would mean the first one is 72 degrees. This one's 144. This one is 216. This one would be 288. All right. Now this is important math too. This also has measurements in the heavenly city. What is it? Oh, we have 12. The gates of the city were 12 furlongs by 12 furlongs, mentioned in 21:16 of Revelation. Oh, 21:16, right? The cube number. Oh, and it's a cube. So here you have the city of Revelation right here. And I'm still looking for evidence. I believe this and this number are related, which they obviously are. They're double, right? But I think this number also helps represent the number of the redeemed, like this, or maybe a special. I'm still looking for some significance to this number. So if anybody finds any significance, but the 72 is very significant. Think about that number, all the times you saw that in the Bible. But you didn't notice that you saw it because you saw the number 70 with a 0 on the end. But if you think about it, there were 70 leaders that Moses and Aaron chose to lead the people of Israel. What's 70 plus 2? Well, 72. Jesus went to Mount Hermon. And that's significant. Talk about Hermon in a second. Mount Hermon, and he chose 70 disciples after the transfiguration and 2 leaders. Who was it? He saw 2 people. Was it Moses and Elijah, I think? Yeah, Moses and Elijah appeared to him at the Mount of Transfiguration. 2 more leaders of Israel, right? Prophets. And then he chose 70 disciples to go out and evangelize. 70 plus 2 is 72. 1 degree of the precession of the equinox, in other words, the axis of the earth, goes around that precession every 25,920 years. But this is a circle, isn't it? All right. There's 360 degrees in a circle. Take this number, divide it by that number. Oh, and it's 72. So every year, or every 72 years, rather, you go 1 degree of the precession of the equinox. Amazing, right? 1 year, or 1 degree every 72 years to complete this 360-degree circle of the Earth's wobble. And they knew this stuff, folks. They knew this 500, 600, 700 years before Christ, at least. I think that's what they were showing, with the Great Pyramids, right? There were 144,000 casing stones on the Great Pyramid. There's some temples in Mexico. Some of them are 144 feet long. Some of them are 216. Believe me, they used the feet measurements. And by the way, a yard and a meter is pretty close. Well, the megalithic yard is pretty close to a yard too. It's like 2.72, ratio. So it's not a whole lot different. So 70, what else? What else can I say about this? 72, see, Israel brought 70 of the children of Israel into Egypt. That's 70 plus 1. Joseph was already there, 72. That's probably what's going on there. They love that number 7. There's so yeah, Moses and Aaron, right? You have the high priest and I guess somebody else, I don't know, maybe the leader of the Sanhedrin or something, and then the 70 members of the Sanhedrin. And this is why you have the Septuagint, thank you. The Greek version of the Old Testament, Septuagint, was supposedly translated by 70 Jewish scholars that King Ptolemy, and they don't even know which Ptolemy. So this can span hundreds of years. It's really funny if you think about it, because you hear all these dates for when the Septuagint was translated. but they don't even know which Ptolemy supposedly did this. They brought these 70 supposed scholars, put them in separate rooms, and they all came out with the exact same translation in Greek of the Old Testament. I mean, if you believe that story, I mean, just look at the number 70 and you realize they're making up a story here, right? So they had to use the number 70 to validate it. So, and that's what a lot of this is. It's just using numbers to validate your story, and that's what geometry, and that's what a lot of the New Testament is they spoke their ideas through mathematics, geometry, gematria, and like we said, the gematria isn't something modern like Hubbard and some of those do on other channels on YouTube where they use modern English gematria and stuff like that. No, 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 no. I mean, there are maybe some examples where some people do that, but it's not real relevant compared to how they've designed your reality, thousands of years ago based on the heavens. This is much more intricate, much more amazing. And it's based on star maps, basically. This is a star, right? You have a 6-pointed star and a 5-pointed star, as above, so below, right? That's not a bad thing. That just means they designed the heavens like the earth. This is why the North Pole. Okay, and I heard this. What I'm about to say. I heard this on Marty Leeds. This is what blows my mind. Okay, that guy's a flat earther, right? Well, he knows some of this stuff. He should know that they measured the earth in order to get this math. They couldn't have done it without the measurements. Okay. So they knew the exact size of the earth. The earth is not flat. But anyway, what I'm about to say came from him. He does have some interesting things despite the flat earth silliness. Okay. And he mentioned that Draco the dragon is a constellation in the sky. If you start from the North Pole, all right, the pole star, all right, the North Star, and not the North Pole in the Earth, the North Star, and you look down through Draco in a V shape, basically like this. Let's just draw it, make it a little easier to understand. So you're looking up in the heavens and you see the North. Where am I? Oh, I threw it over here. So here's this North Star, and here's Draco. Basically, roughly a third. Yeah, so it'd be like this. Roughly 1/3 of the stars would be to the horizon on Earth beneath Draco. Okay. So when you hear the story in the Bible about Lucifer took 1/3 of the stars of heaven and they called him the great dragon, Lucifer the dragon. Here's your dragon. Okay. And there's your stars. It takes up about a third of the sky. Approximately, So that's where a lot of the stories come from. So if you demand that these stories be literal, then you're really short-circuiting the message. Is it literally Satan? I mean, well, how is it? And why for the last 2,000 years have only Masons and your Freemasons know a lot of this stuff, folks? They don't tell you because in their mind, you have to knock on the door and seek the knowledge, right? Because knowledge is in the heart of man like a well, and a wise man goes and draws it from him. It says in Proverbs, and they always like to quote Solomon, right? Solomon wrote Proverbs. Well, that's why they put their Masonic lodge on a hill, and you gotta go knock on the door. They don't tell you, but for the last 2,000 years, a lot of them knew this stuff. Not all of them. A lot of them go in there and they just want to make sure they don't get a ticket when when a policeman pulls them over and sees their Masonic logo, right? But some of them knew this. You just didn't know it. All right. But your pastor don't know it for some reason, does he? Huh. Isn't that interesting? Why isn't it taught in Sunday school? Maybe because they didn't go knock on the Masonic Lodge's door. And I'm not a Mason. Okay. It's just a lot of this you can figure out. It's the internet age, folks. You have no excuse to be ignorant anymore. I mean, just go out and find knowledge. Get a calculator, just a basic calculator, and just divide everything you can find by pi and phi and every number in the Bible, and you'll be amazed at what stands out to you. I mean, for example, the number 42. Remember the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy always talked about that number 42. It's the most significant number, right? Well, they're in Egypt. It comes from the 42 principles of Maat, right? Principals? No, principles of M-A'-A-T. That's how you spell that. And the principles of Maat, if you pass the 42 principles of Maat, then you got to go to the afterlife. If you didn't, you got ate by a giant crocodile. I think that was on Moon Knight recently, or maybe it was a hippo. I'm not sure. All right. All right. So what is this? Well, it's 3 times 14, or if you put a decimal here, you'd notice it as 314, right? Now, we talked about this earlier in Malachi. Chapter 4, verse 2, it says the Son, capital S-U-N, of talking about Jesus in the future, in the Old Testament, the Son of righteousness shall come with healing in his wings. Then, that was the last book of the Old Testament. Then you go to Matthew, the first book of the New Testament. Oh, Matthew. Wink, wink, wink. Matthew. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And Jesus comes as a descendant of 3 groups of 14 generations, doesn't he? Except one's missing, and there's a reason for that, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So, honestly, I can't remember. I figured it out once, and I can't remember. I'd have to go back over my notes. So, then you go to Revelation. All right. And how long is the Great Tribulation? Remember, the tribulation is 7 years. Well, what's the Great Tribulation, right? So you always hear all the theologians talk about the 7-year Great Tribulation, right? Well, divide it in half, and there's 3.5 on this side, 3.5 on this side. So that would be how many months? 42. Isn't that interesting? Oh, and what happens? The judgment. 42 principles of Maat, judgment. 42 months, judgment, the great judgment, right? Doesn't happen immediately after that, but it happens sequentially after that at some point, right? There's supposed to be 1,000-year millennial reign, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Same idea, though. Okay, so what else? What else? I hope you learned something, folks. I can't believe you're all so quiet. I honestly think like people are scared. Like, I can't let anybody know I learned this. I'm just going to keep it to myself. Because honestly, it does. It's frightening at first. I mean, I went to Hyles Anderson, took everything in the Bible extremely literally, and I also have Asperger's, like strong Asperger's. You know, I kept to myself my whole life, so I take things extremely literally to begin with, and then I went to a very literalist fundamentalist college. Extreme literalism, right? So anyway, I hope you're not scared. So take this knowledge and grow with it. What else? What else? Man, there's so many things. Think about how close 3:14 is to 3:15. Let's go back to Genesis. This is the very first, and I should have said that first. This is Genesis. Oh, and March 15 is the Ides of March, isn't it, when people die? So think about that. Go read Genesis 3:14 and 15. It's the very first prophecy of Jesus' coming. And the serpent shall bruise his heel, and he shall crush the head of the serpent. All right, it's one sentence, 2 verses. Starts in verse 14 and verse 15. 2 verses, 1 sentence. There you go again, pi right there with Jesus. See, it's all through the Bible. There's tons of mysteries like this all over the Bible. 42 she bears. Oh, Elisha's 42 she bears. Wonder where that comes from. Why 42 she bears the Big Dipper? Has to do with Ursa Major's the bear. Yeah, I'll stop it there.